She's only a child, but already the palace is watching her, not for mischief, but for what she might reveal. In whispered halls where history repeats, Charlotte is listening, learning, and remembering. The summer sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard, and from the window of her private study, Princess Kate watched Charlotte playing quietly with Louis. It had been weeks since their hallway conversation, the one that had unsettled her and William in a way nothing else had. Since then, Charlotte hadn't spoken much more about Queen Camilla, but what she had said lingered. Kate had begun to notice things she might have overlooked before. At formal events, Charlotte would smile, wave, and behave with practiced grace. But her eyes often moved quickly when Camilla entered the room. She wasn't fearful, but she was cautious, watchful, noticing more than most. Behind palace doors, Charlotte was beginning to form her own opinions. Not just about people, but about power. And though she was still a child, it became increasingly clear that she understood more than anyone expected. What made her so sure? What had she really heard? William, too, had been wrestling with those questions. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, William confided in Kate that Charlotte's words brought back memories of his own childhood. He remembered how he and Harry had often overheard things they weren't meant to. Whispered arguments, slammed doors, clipped tones in rooms where silence was supposed to reign. He remembered the pain in Diana's voice, and the sense that people were smiling in public but plotting in private. Charlotte's story didn't feel like a misunderstanding. It felt like history echoing through the walls, and now that echo was louder. In the weeks that followed, palace aides began whispering about small but noticeable changes. William had become more reserved in Camilla's presence. At one reception, he stepped away from a photo opportunity when Camilla approached, letting Kate take center stage instead. Kate, who was always careful to maintain unity, had begun offering fewer warm glances toward her stepmother-in-law. It wasn't hostile, but it was measured, almost as if she had chosen to withhold something invisible but essential: warmth. Insiders also noted that during a recent garden party, Charlotte was absent from a group of royal children who were brought forward to greet Camilla. Some said she wasn't feeling well. Others said it had been a scheduling oversight, but those close to the family weren't so sure. Privately, a few longtime palace staff began referring to Charlotte as the quiet watcher. She was never rude, never disobedient, but she paid attention. And in a household where appearances mattered more than truth, that made her presence quietly powerful. As Queen Camilla continued her public work, from charity appearances to diplomatic functions, her confidence seemed to grow. On the surface, she was every bit the steady partner to King Charles. She listened intently, smiled at the right moments, and said all the right things. But those closest to her knew something else. Camilla was tired. She had spent decades building her place in the monarchy, from whispers and scandal to grudging respect, and finally acceptance. And yet, just when her role had become solid, cracks were forming. William's rise as heir apparent was accelerating, especially with Charles battling health issues. The public was warming to William and Kate more than ever, and their children, especially Charlotte, were becoming figures of fascination in their own right. Camilla knew what that meant. The spotlight was shifting, again, and she could feel it in how people greeted her, in the way newspapers framed headlines, in the fact that no matter how hard she worked, Diana's ghost still haunted every corner of the institution she now helped lead. In private, Camilla was said to have grown frustrated. She had allegedly confided to a close friend that Charlotte reminded her too much of Diana. Not in looks, but in spirit. Observant, intuitive, a little too aware. "She watches like Diana used to," she reportedly said. "Always listening, always thinking. It's unsettling." Within the palace, Charlotte's bond with her brother George remained strong. Despite the expectations placed on him as future king, Charlotte had become his quiet support. "She grounds him," one family friend noted. "He's shy in some ways, but she makes him feel sure." Their relationship was close enough that, according to sources, Charlotte once confided in George about what she'd overheard Camilla say. At first, George didn't know what to do with the information, but when he mentioned it in passing to a tutor, Not directly, just as a curious question about loyalty and leadership, it reportedly raised concern. That tutor, unsure of the context, mentioned it to a senior palace advisor. And just like that, the quiet words of a child rippled through layers of royal formality. Camilla was not confronted directly, but she noticed the change. People had started watching her again, not as queen, but as a figure with a complicated past. And in the palace, perception is everything. As Charlotte learned more about her late grandmother, through stories, videos, and whispered family moments, she seemed to grow more connected to the idea of Diana as not just a royal, but a moral compass. At one point, Charlotte reportedly asked her mother why Diana's voice wasn't recorded more, why she didn't leave behind more interviews or speeches. Kate responded with care, explaining that sometimes people are remembered not just for what they say, but for how they make others feel. Diana's legacy lived on in how people talked about her kindness, her warmth, and the way she made strangers feel seen. Charlotte didn't say much in response, but later she was seen writing something in a small notebook she kept in her room. No one was sure what it said, but it wasn't the only time she'd written in it. Over time, that notebook became a kind of secret journal, a place where Charlotte could process what she saw, what she heard, and what she believed. In a world of polished public images, it was the closest thing she had to truth. In April 2025, during a charity event hosted by Kate in support of children's mental health, Charlotte made an unannounced appearance. She didn't speak to the crowd or take questions, but she greeted several children her age and quietly sat in on one of the group sessions, listening as other kids talked about anxiety, school stress, and growing up in the spotlight of social media. Afterwards, she reportedly told Kate that she liked hearing other kids talk, and that sometimes it helps to know you're not the only one thinking big things. Those who met her that day said she was kind, curious, and strikingly self-aware. Later that evening, William and Kate spoke privately with their daughter about what she'd observed. She didn't bring up Camilla. She didn't need to. The conversation was bigger now, about how to carry the weight of being seen, how to know when to speak up, and how to hold on to truth in a world of appearances. Charlotte listened carefully. Then she asked her father a question that stayed with him for days. Is it more important to be liked or to be right? William didn't answer immediately. He didn't want to give her an easy reply. Instead, he promised to talk about it more, to keep the conversation going, because he knew she wasn't really asking about herself. She was asking about everyone around her. As summer 2025 approaches, the royal family prepares for another season of high-profile appearances. The 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings, the Chelsea Flower Show, and Royal Ascot will all see Queen Camilla and other senior royals sharing the spotlight. But behind the scenes, the mood is shifting. Charlotte is growing up, not as a passive observer, but as someone quietly forming a sense of justice, legacy, and identity. And for those who know her best, it's no longer a question of whether she understands the power dynamics around her. It's a question of when she'll choose to act again. And when she does, it won't be out of rebellion. It will be out of something deeper. A sense that the future of the royal family isn't just about crowns or titles. It's about conscience. And Charlotte, the girl who once stopped in a hallway and said she'd show them the real Queen Camilla, is proving that even in a world built on silence, one voice, no matter how young, can still be heard. If you thought that was intense, just wait. We're only getting started. Charlotte's story is unfolding, and the palace is watching every step. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss what's next. Because in this royal game, even the quietest voice can shake the crown.